I don't believe that we should ever have a good money again before we take the thing out of the hands of government.
Welcome back, everyone. We're Simply Bitcoin. We break down the news, the daily fail, meme review, software releases, hardware releases, and the websites by plebs. All right, Nico, we're diving into the numbers. Let's do it.
Number time! Brought to you by Bitcoin 2022. It's going to be the largest Bitcoin conference ever, hosted in sunny Miami Beach, Florida, April 6th to the 9th. Jordan Peterson was just announced as the speaker. We also have Naim Bukele, Michael Saylor, Saifuddin, Jack Mallers, Senator Cynthia Lummis. Absolutely crazy lineup. And we have DJs playing on the last day like Deadmau5 and Steve Aoki. And you can take advantage of the link down below for 10% off your tickets to Bitcoin 2022.
At the time of this recording, the block height is 725,335. The Bitcoin price, 41,700. Chain rewrite days, 711. Total public lightning capacity, 3,446.35. Moscow time, 2398. Are we still allowed to say Moscow time? It doesn't matter. Anyways, 2398. Blocks to the halvening, 114,665. And the Samurai Whirlpool unspent capacity. That's right. That is a coin join or collaborative spend service. The unspent capacity on Samurai Whirlpool is 4,394.15 BTC.
Very nice. Very nice.
The numbers,
dude. So, oh man. There was it too soon for that Moscow joke? I don't know.
I don't know. I just, I saw yesterday on Twitter somebody made a comment about it, and I was thinking, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm like, maybe we need to. No, we're not changing that.
Maybe. Okay, so Phil, check this out. I was gonna go through some Hopium numbers today. Glassnode numbers look phenomenal. However, we got a comment, and it really bummed me out. I'm going to pop it up for you guys. But it basically says, so you guys have become a right-wing Bitcoin promoting channel. Whoa. So much for being apolitical. Thanks for all the info and encouragement in Bitcoin, but my respect for your apolitical platform is gone. Very strong comment. Now, I wanted to address it. We wanted to address it. Phil and I spoke about this before we started recording. Okay, so I'm assuming you're responding to the Pazaki comments that we made yesterday. Okay, so let's get something straight, okay? The environmental attacks on Bitcoin aren't coming from the right side. They're coming from the left-hand side. Step one. Step two is the political attacks on Bitcoin. The majority of them are also coming from the left-hand side. They are not coming from the right-hand side. So again, like we've always said on this show, we are apolitical in the sense that, listen, if there's a Democratic, in the United States, or if there's a left-wing politician that supports Bitcoin and supports Bitcoin's ideals, then we will support them. We don't care about political parties in the traditional sense. But again, like I said in the episode on Sunday, I'm starting to pick up a pattern, and the pattern is freaking obvious. And if you still don't believe me, I brought some receipts. Check out this website. It's called Do They Support Crypto, right? And it goes through pro-crypto senators, senators against crypto, right? And it goes through all their stances, right? And look, again, like I said, guys, there's a pattern, right? Senators against, Oregon, Democrat. Ohio, Democrat. Rhode Island, Democrat. Massachusetts, Democrats. Pro-senators, Wyoming, Republican. Texas, Republican. Pennsylvania, Republican. Texas, Republican. Now, I also said it's not black and white, right? There is some crossover. Ron Wyden, Oregon, Democrat. Rick Scott, U.S. Senator, Florida, Republican. So there is crossover. But the initial point that I said is I'm starting to pick up a pattern. And that pattern shows right here. It speaks for itself. The majority of senators that are against Bitcoin and shitcoin are on the Democratic side, the left-hand side. The pro-Bitcoin and shitcoin senators are on the Republican side, the right-hand side. And that's just a fact. And this website lays it out. And look, so let's go to the stances. Since Cynthia Lummis has the most 60 stances, right? We know we know Ted Cruz is super pro. Let's go to Elizabeth Warren, 17. She's talking about it a lot. We have to think hard about how new technology affects our climate. Bitcoin's energy use has more than tripled since 2019. The crypto industry claims that crypto is the path to financial inclusion, which it is. But Bitcoin ownership is even more concentrated within the top 1% than dollars. That's bullshit. We fact-checked that. Right? Again, so I'm sticking to my guns. If you see it as us being right-wing because we're pointing out facts, like you could we put all the sources below, you could verify it yourself. And I remember, and it was on Sunday's episode that I told you, it was over the weekend. It was Saturday's episode. I said, I've never wanted to go out and say this on this channel because we knew we were going to get attacked. And that's exactly what happened, right? But again, the pattern is undeniable. Put your political leanings aside. We don't care about that. We don't care about the old political tropes. I think it's fucking stupid. But the pattern that I'm starting to pick up, which is what I said on Saturday, and then I found this site to, back up my points, it's undeniable. So if you want to say we're a right-wing channel because we've picked up a pattern that you could verify and you could check yourself, then call us right-wing. But we know we're not. The attacks on the environmental stuff with Bitcoin are only coming from the left. They're not coming from the right. So again, I'm gonna reiterate the point that I always say. We are not political on this show. We're apolitical, but we are going to call out the people that stand against Bitcoin. And in this moment in time, that could change in the future. It happens to be coming from one side of the political aisle more than it is coming from the other side of the political aisle. However, like I said before, it's not black and white. We know that Donald Trump's against Bitcoin, right? So it's not black and white, but it looks like there's sides there. My 2 cents. Phil?
I don't know why I'm moving to Florida. Rick Scott sucks. I just saw that there. He's against crypto. But look, all joking aside, right, to your point, look, I think I have to start by saying, for the people that don't know, I'm originally Canadian, okay? And I moved here and I currently live in Massachusetts. So I have a great predisposition to understanding all kinds of the wonders of, the social system, and all you got to do is pay the taxes and you'll get all these wonderful services. Look, I've been brainwashed with this stuff since I was a kid. I absolutely hate politics. Okay, politics is a bunch of nonsense, and what people need to take away, look, this is exactly what we said was going to happen, okay? Bitcoin is going to be made into a partisan issue, which it's not. Freedom is for everyone, and this is what we keep explaining. It just so happens that right now, at this point in history, Bitcoin is aligning very strongly with the same ideals that the right has expressed. That can easily change, number one. Number two, people can change as well. So the reality is that we need to not get sucked into the bullshit of left and right, okay? Because it absolutely is. It is complete nonsense. I mean, if people don't see that all this does is create division, I really don't know what else to say, but it's complete nonsense. And every single person, whether you're right-leaning, whether you're left-leaning, you can benefit, we can benefit from having proper sound money like Bitcoin. This is what matters. So we can't get lost. So look, my personal opinion, I'm obviously not upset, with what the person said. Like that's their opinion. And I can understand how they can see that because of the way that the information is right now. But if we just zoom out, we can see that this is good for everyone. So anyways.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right. Look, we stand for freedom. Right, and the ideals of Bitcoin, which is private property, no censorship, right? And here's the thing: it's funny you mentioned the historical perspective, Phil. The left in the 1950s and 60s were pro free speech, and it was actually the right that was trying to censor them, right? So again, it switches over time, but it just happens to be that in this moment in history, right, the right happens to want freedom more, and the left wants to have more centralized control, right? So I don't know, dude, but if you still think we're right leaning, so be it. But then you're totally missing the message, which is we stand for Bitcoin, we stand for freedom. That's what we're all about. That's what Bitcoin represents. If you're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom. Like that's just how it works, right? So that's how we feel about it. And if any leaning Republican or right-leaning persons goes against Bitcoin, we're going to call them out and trash them, just like we did with Donald Trump. We did a whole episode talking shit about Donald Trump. Not the one over the weekend, but we did one like a couple months ago on that. So again, it has nothing to do with left or right. It has to do with freedom.
So hold on. I also want to point out, we did explain that Ted Cruz was using this as a political standpoint as well to gain brownie points. So it's not that we're giving a biased opinion. We're doing our best to provide an objective opinion that sticks closest to the tenets of Bitcoin.
Yep. We will support and get behind any politician that stands for Bitcoin. Like, that's just how it is. We don't care if they're on the political left or the political right, because again, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. So we're not concerned about left and right and all this shit. We are concerned about Bitcoin and hyper-Bitcoinization, and any politician that wants to help that, great, we'll get behind them, and any politician that is against that, we'll, criticize them. But the reality is, which is what I said over the weekend, I pulled up the website. The reality is that there is the majority of senators that are against Bitcoin and crypto are on the left-hand side. And the majority of senators that are pro-Bitcoin and crypto are on the right-hand side. That's it. That's all we're trying to say. So if you want to criticize us and call us a alt-right and all that shit, so be it. But you're misinterpreting what it is we're saying. Anyways, Phil, it's time for the Daily Fail.
Brought to you by Amber App. Check them out. It is the best way to buy Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin made easy. Low fees, fair spreads, smart automation. The link is down below.
Amber, the smart way to stack sats.
All right. After yesterday's Hex expose, we decided to go a little light, do some 3 quick fails. And we are going to dive into them right away. We were tagged by Mr. Robot in this. I think this is his work. Let's take a look at it. Coming to a country near you. And yes, that's right. That is 1920s depression versus 2022 Russian banks. 100 years, and we haven't learned shit. Mm-hmm. Sad. But we now have Bitcoin. We did not have Bitcoin back then. So, just kind of scary because we have Bitcoin right now and those people are still standing in line. All right, maybe Bitcoin's not fixing this yet, but it will. Okay?
I mean,
Bitcoin will fix this.
it will fix it for people who choose to adopt Bitcoin, but for people that choose to live in the fiat matrix, again, because of convenience, right? And central bank digital currencies are going to be even more convenient. Again, it's what I've been saying, guys. It's convenient slavery or slightly inconvenient freedom, which is what Bitcoin enables, right? Bitcoin isn't going to be as convenient as, or perhaps it will in the future. But again, I'll put it in a more simplistic sense, right? A centralized system is always going to be quicker and snappier than a decentralized system, okay? Also, Bitcoin is open source, right? A closed source system, right? With a centralized dev team and all that, they have more capability to make it snappy, to make it quick, to make it this, right? Bitcoin is open source. Bitcoin is decentralized. So in my opinion, and again, like, this could be so that the technology in like 10 years could be that it's so good that you don't even notice that delay, right? But on an architectural sense, right, a decentralized system, because of how it's built, is always going to be slightly slower than a centralized system. So again, what does this have to do with the picture? Again, do you want something slightly less convenient so that you don't have to wait in a line, or you don't have to, you could leave the country if there's, war and all this, so you could take everything with you, like we were talking about all the stories and stuff about how this Ukrainian escaped and he was able to take some money with him and his debit cards didn't work? Or do you want to live in the cuck system where essentially you're prone to this? If shit hits the fan, you're going to have to get in line. And forget about the 1-800 number. They don't give a shit about you. Perhaps you're a trucker or something. I don't know.
All right, well, tore that picture apart. All right, moving on. Okay, let's do this. Let's take a look. This really got me thinking. So the 2 next fails are by fellow Bitcoiner and watcher of the show, Hans Films. We always talk to him in DMs. Provides us such great information and great links. This story, though, really got me wondering, how much money am I actually allowed to have on me in the car? Okay, so let's just take a quick look at this. Man arrested after almost 200K found stashed in toy boxes. during a traffic stop. 64-year-old Amundo Rendon was arrested the past Tuesday after being pulled over for a traffic stop. While the traffic stop was happening, the deputies on site say they spotted several criminal indicators. They discovered 3 toy boxes that contained massive amounts of cash. The amount of cash seized amounted to about $200,000. As a result of the findings, Rendon was arrested and charged with money laundering greater than $150,000 and less than $300,000, a second-degree felony. And this just, I was like, wait a second. I mean, was he money laundering? So anyways, I had to go and ask the question, right? And essentially, this is the response that I found on answers.com is there is no lawyer.
We're not lawyers, by the way.
Yeah, we're not lawyers.
This is what we're getting from the internet.
This is what we're getting, just pointing that out. This is not legal advice, but, on answers.com, they say there is no limit to the amount of cash you are legally allowed to carry. However, if you're stopped for another reason and the police discover that you're carrying a large amount of cash, they may suspect you of some criminal activity, such as involvement in the drug trade. So, this just seems like he was charged with this and we don't know anymore. And it just sounds to me like the only thing he did was have this money in boxes. Now, granted, it is kind of strange that he had them in toy boxes, but I guess he also understood maybe that if he was pulled over for some reason and they started to search his car, maybe they would look over that. Obviously, they didn't. So this is... Don't you find that? I don't know. To me, this is just kind of strange, and it also illustrates why we Bitcoin. So,
dude, it's the wealth confiscation laws, right, in this country are absolutely crazy. If the police suspects that, if they see a wad of cash in your car, they could say that pertains to a criminal, pertains to a crime, or that pertains to something sketchy. They could seize it, and you essentially have to prove that wad of cash isn't related to a crime. And that's the only way you get your money back. Now, here's the thing, right? Also, when you're traveling, if you enter the U.S., you can only bring up to $10,000 in cash, right? So, again...
But this guy wasn't crossing any borders, right? This is what makes this stuff really creepy.
Well,
that's why this is a fail,
This is why we always say on this channel, right? Which is like the government doesn't see money as yours. They see it as like, you can have it for now until you cross us. Then it's not really yours anymore, right? And then it's like wealth confiscation or asset seizure, I think it's what it's called, right? So asset forfeiture is the correct term. So look, again, with Bitcoin, if you correctly store your seed phrase, especially if you use multi-sig and all that good stuff, the ability for the state to seize your wealth becomes increasingly difficult. And if everybody properly stored their seed, it would become extremely expensive and almost impossible for the state to effectively redistribute and seize wealth, right? So, like I've been saying on this channel a lot, it changes the balance of power from the state back to the individual. And again, the only reason this happens is because, dude, think about how hard it is to carry $300,000 in cash. That's a big-ass briefcase. That's a lot of money. It's like a pile, right?
Or boxes of toys.
Right? And just by looking at it, you're like, this guy's a drug dealer, because that's what you see in the movies when you see a pile of cash, right? So with Bitcoin, you could store trillions of dollars with the 12-word seed phrase, and no one's going to know, right? So it right. It's just crazy. Bitcoin really does fix this as well.
Yeah, it does. It really does. Okay. All right. We're going to shift gears. And we're going to try something a little different with NFTs, okay? Because we've already Nico's printed the pictures. We've already done the right-click stuff. For some reason, people are still getting scammed by this stuff. So we're going to try something a little different with NFTs. Let's dive into this story quick before we move on to the different method that we're going to try to explain NFTs, okay? Lana Rhoades accused of major crypto scam over a failed NFT scheme. Recently, celebrity Lana Rhoades was accused of crypto fraud after making $1.5 million off her followers. Project named Cryptosis was launched in the last week of January, in which celebrity animations were shown. Rhoades had promised her fans that the NFT plan would succeed, giving them an attractive return on investment. ROI. The NFT scheme swore to reward its investors with properties in the metaverse, video games like Sandbox or Decentraland. Great. Fake land in a fake world. It's awesome. Even within the compensation was included the acquisition of several unique NFT pieces. Rhodes pointed out that the NFT plan would gradually improve its adoption. Rhodes' goal was to get the non-fungible scheme out to other celebrities, but that never came to fruition due to the lack of credibility. With promoters absent in the plan, Lana Rhodes slipped away with a huge chunk of the money. Rhodes says that sometimes NFT-based crypto investment schemes might not succeed, but this doesn't mean it's a fraud. Lana Rhodes asked her investors, keep that in mind, asked her investors not to focus on opinions about the NFT scheme, but more essential things like the conflicts between Russia and Ukraine. I don't know what that has to do with this. Anyways, one victim who preferred to remain anonymous confesses that she spent about $4,000 on a Lana NFT piece, and now the image has no value. Phil likes to collect a lot of useless crap. I'm Phil, and I like to collect a lot of useless crap. Some of this crap that I like to buy is stuff like dunnies. Okay, I think these things are super cool, and I don't know why. I think they're really interesting. They're valuable to me, and I don't know why. I just think they're really cool. So I am willing to pay. They're asking $49 for this thing, $49.99 plus shipping. I'm willing to pay this with the understanding that this is not an investment. I am not an investor. This will conceivably have no value. And that's okay with me because I like to collect useless crap. That's just who I am. And this is the problem with NFTs. Now, obviously, I'm not going to read to you guys this whole description here. I just highlighted it to point out that collectibles are not telling you, okay, when you buy something like this, they're nowhere in the description are they telling me that this is going up in value. Nowhere am I made to think that I am an investor in something, okay? I am buying a collectible because I think it's cool. I like useless crap. This is what you have to take away from NFTs. So if you're buying NFTs, there's nothing wrong with that. You need to understand it's the same useless crap as my collectibles. They're most likely not going to be worth anything. That's not why you're buying them. Nico. You think that?
Drop mic. Yeah, dude, I can't add anything to that. The only thing I wanted to say is that I can't write, copy, paste your dunny, dude. Okay, I can't. You know, it's a real world object. It's hard to copy. And with these NFTs, right, you could literally make an exact photocopy with write, copy, paste, right? So, you know, and I agree, right? Why are they calling pieces of art collectibles investments, right? That's the slip. That's the slip right there, right? So it's just hilarious. And look, in Lana, Rhodes' industry, I'm sure a lot of you guys will know, right? What does this have to do with NFTs? Clearly, there was an entrepreneur or an NFT person or a shitcoiner or a dev that approached her, hey, if we associate an NFT with Lana Rhodes, then we could sell a lot of that NFT, and then we'll give Lana Rhodes a little bit of a kickback. So she's not going to say no. So the whole thing is just, guys, it's a scam. It's noise. Focus on the signal. Don't give these guys your Bitcoin. Keep it. Anyways, Phil, it's time for the Daily Meme Review. Brought to you by Citadel 21. It's the best Bitcoin cultural zine. Every magazine has different artwork on its cover. This is volume 10. It just came out. They're scarce. There's only 1,000 physical copies made per volume. This is copy 246. Every copy has different artwork by Bitcoiners. Get your print of Citadel 21 today. First meme is brought to us by a fellow plebe, Hodl Jodl. Anyways, let's check it out. Twitter, CNN, MSNBC, the NPC, the virus, Ukraine, click. It's so true. Have anyone else noticed that the virus just completely disappeared? Now the narrative has shifted to potential Armageddon. Anyways, check it out. This is by DirGG. Mood, fear, and then slavery. And that is Bitcoin, really. Moving on to the next one is by RD, BTC. Be greedy when others are fearful. Me, Bitcoin, me. Very good. Believe in something even if it means sacrificing everything. And this is Jihan Woo. This is a famous, like, yeah, just do it. Fuck your mother if you want to fuck. Okay, so a little bit of backstory to this.
Yeah, we have to give some context to this one.
Jihan replied to somebody like about this when people were criticizing his move with Bitcoin Cash. Jihan is the founder of Bitmain, just one of the biggest mining manufacturers. They make the S19s, the S9, all those famous miners. Jihan sold the company. He's no longer with them, but he founded them, right? And he was responsible with Roger Ver to essentially fork Bitcoin into Bitcoin Cash. And Roger and Jihan were the ones that were behind the Bitcoin Cash fork. And essentially, what they did was Jihan artificially, not for market forces, but changed all the Bitcoin miners because they can't. It's the same algorithm. He forced them to mine Bitcoin Cash instead, tricking everybody into believing that the hash rate was going towards Bitcoin Cash when in reality they were mining at a loss. It was more profitable to mine Bitcoin, right? So again, this guy is responsible for attacking Bitcoin. He wanted to take it over, right? The fork wars they lost. He got totally wrecked. He lost billions of dollars, right? But at the time, it was very scary to live through the fork wars, right? But anyways, this was one of the responses that he did for someone asking him about Bitcoin Cash. And remember, this is a very serious guy. This is how he just slipped out. He just broke one day, right? Like Roger did the same thing. Roger just flipped out, right? And it sucks because they did lose billions of dollars, right? They lost billions of dollars trying to take over Bitcoin, right? So it's a great meme. Phil?
I just want to point out quickly, because you mentioned Roger, for the people who want to see that video, just go on YouTube and look up Roger Ver John Carvalho, okay? And you'll see that is a fantastic video.
It is. It's a classic. Okay. You can't taper a Ponzi. And this is Klaus Schwab. And it's the virus. And then the Klaus Schwab Russia virus. Absolutely hilarious. Last one by Stefan Chow. He's replying, if there was a little book of Bitcoin memes, what would qualify for the top 10? No requirements, just 30 meme masterpieces. And learn how to buy Bitcoin. First install Bitcoin wallet. Oh shit, you forgot one step. For a few months now the price has fallen. Shit, now it's been a year and you still haven't installed a Bitcoin wallet. The price is now 3x and you can't afford a whole Bitcoin anymore. Fuck, shitcoins are up 2,000% and you still haven't installed a Bitcoin wallet and your stupid friends are now rich and you don't understand what altcoin is. You finally installed Bitcoin wallet but only enough to cover the cost of the WannaCry ransom on your laptop. You think you could do things but you can't. Prices is millions but you still think it's a Ponzi.
That's really well done.
Very, very well done.
Well done.
I agree. Shout out to Stefan. Anyways, for those memes, Phil, let me give it a box.
Nothing in it.
Has a cube. And has a micro SD card.
Charger and memory.
Yeah.
Energy, and memory.
Memergy.
I'm about to have a seizure right now. Okay, so here we go. As I've mentioned a few times, I'm moving, so I'm totally running out of shit in my basement. So we are gonna go with this very handy. Not even telling you what it is.
Plastic thingy-majigger? That's handy.
Doesn't matter what it is.
Anyways, guys, we want to know if you agree with our scores, disagree. Let us know down in the comment section. Comment. Help us defeat the shitcoin channels. And of course, make sure to subscribe to us on alternative video platforms because we do talk shit about Klaus Schwab. Like rumble.com and our personal favorite, bitcointv.com. And last but not least, join our Telegram group. Hang out with the plebs and link us some dank Bitcoin memes to review on the Bitcoin meme review. Because the Bitcoin meme review, we need memes to review from plebs because it's a Bitcoin meme review. But anyways, Phil, it's time for the daily news. Brought to you by CryptoCloaks.com. They make the best 3D printed Bitcoin merch, like the famous 3D printed Bitcoin art sculpture opens up. You put your favorite wallet in there. Also, the famous 3D printed Bitcoin honey badger also opens up. You put your favorite cold card, hardware wallet, anything you want. Comes in 3 different sizes. And you can take advantage of the link down below for 10% off anything on the store, CryptoCloaks.com. Phil, are you ready to blow a Canadian gasket?
I don't
Dude,
know. I
this
don't have my
is-
maple syrup or a hockey stick.
This is absolutely insane. This is insanity. This is insanity. This is a clip from the Senate, and essentially one of the oppositions was asking the Trudeau, someone on Trudeau's party, what the justification, what the process was of unfreezing bank accounts. And I'm not going to say anything else. His answer speaks for itself. Now, guys, I want you to pay attention to this. I want you to pay attention to what's happening in Russia, what happened today. We're going to cover that in a sec. But I don't think we've ever lived in a time, Phil, where the government was actively weaponizing money against their own citizens or against giant populations. And that's what this centralized money enables. We're not even at central bank digital currencies, right? So again, this is what you get if your money is not in Bitcoin. If your money is not in Bitcoin, it's basically the government's money. And you still don't believe me, it's just the person that you support happens to be in power. What happens when that day changes, right? Anyways, check this out, Phil, because it is total clown world.
It to its citizens.
They're Bathurst.
Senator Gold, how will a bank know that someone has, quote, stopped participating in the protest and then unfreeze their bank account?
Well, thank you for the question. It's an important question. I think my understanding is that there is a two-way communication between the banking institutions and financial institutions, it's not only banks, and police authorities. The police authorities, the banks may have suspicions and may communicate with the police. The police, in turn, may have information, as in this particular person or company has a truck in the middle of Wellington and has refused to leave. And so, therefore, there is a communication which the Act legitimates and authorizes such that goes back and forth. The same channels of communication extend to when somebody leaves. So my understanding is, Senator, that if a person, let's say on Sunday, decided to leave and did leave, that information would be communicated to the bank, or that person could communicate that information to the bank, which could be verified. And my understanding is, though it's early days, obviously, in the application of this, that's how the information would come to the attention of the bank. And as I've answered in previous questions, there are work being done between the banks and the RCMP to regulate the process.
What the fuck?
What the fuck did we just watch?
Okay, so to be fair, this video came out in April 14th, right? But the reason I wanted to cover it, Phil, is, first of all, we never covered it on this channel before, okay? Second of all, I want you guys to focus on what's happening, okay? Essentially, they're freezing bank accounts of people without a subpoena from a judge. Nothing. Just... You might remember he used the worst example, which is someone parked in the middle of the thing. But we know for a fact that people had their bank accounts frozen that didn't park in the middle of the road, just for the mere fact of donating. They had their bank accounts frozen.
Bingo.
This is so easily abused. And I think we're getting into very dangerous territory, which we have been predicting on this channel, I might add. Why did we know for sure? Because if you give that much power to an individual, he is going to use it. And that's exactly what you're seeing here. Governments are weaponizing the fiat financial system to their advantage. But it's not also happening in the Western world. Now, the United States and Russia, because of the recent Russian invasion into the Ukraine, right? Whatever politically, however, which way you feel about it, right? We think that war is wrong every single time, right? But again, I don't think it's right that the U.S. government freezes the accounts or stops the ability for the central bank of Russia to transact, because again, the oligarchs and Putin aren't going to get hurt. It's the every average day citizen that is going to get absolutely crushed. But they're not only going after traditional Russian banks. Now the US government is asking crypto exchanges to, let's see what the article says. The Biden administration is asking crypto exchanges to help ensure, check this out, Phil, Russian individuals and organizations. What does the average Russian have to do with this? You're targeting people that have nothing to do with this. This is the responsibility of a government, not the people. And when you put sanctions on Iran, when you put sanctions on Venezuela, when you put sanctions on Cuba, many people get caught in the crossfire that have nothing to do with their governments there. And they can't. In the case in Afghanistan, people were starving, and the only option people had was to buy Bitcoin. But Washington wants you to believe that no, they can't have that escape valve either, right? So absolutely crazy. And we could already, like we've been saying, the crypto exchanges, they're captured by the governments, right? Do not keep your Bitcoin on an exchange, because it's only a matter of time before you're a trucker or a Russian. Right? That's the way that I see it. Starts with truckers that are peacefully protesting. Now it's with innocent Russians that have dude. They have a terrible government. It's not their fault, and it's scaring the crap out of them. And we started this show with the bank lines. Now I'm going to even give a scarier example. Apple Pay and Google Pay no longer work on Moscow's metro system, leading to long queues as people fumble about for cash. So this is all happening because you're trusting a centralized entity that is prone to political pressure. Bitcoin is apolitical. It does not care, as much as they would like you to believe, of course, because this is a posturing effort. It's like, yeah, we could shut that down. Yeah, perhaps the centralized exchanges, but you can't censor anything on Bitcoin. So, interesting, to say the least. So very sad. Anyways, Phil, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is sad and disgusting. And I just want to go back to the fact that they are punishing individuals. Okay, when we're talking about the Russia, when we're talking about the Russia incident, right, with Ukraine, they are punishing individuals. Not every single Russian organization has something to do with what's going on in the war. It's pathetic and sad, and it actually goes to show the weakness of their conviction. Because it's just they paint with a broad brush. That's it. You're all criminals. You're from a criminal nation. Boom, we just stopped the nation. And that's it. No, that's not how it works. That actually ends up showing that we're not doing it right, that clearly we need to fix this problem. And, of course, as everybody knows, Bitcoin is that answer that helps put everyone on that level playing field. The other thing is the piece about Google and Apple. That's pure corporate censorship, right? Like immediately right there. Look at that. All of a sudden, those payment methods no longer work anymore.
Well, it's always
those are U.S. companies.
It's always going to happen with political money, dude. It's just it's like basic human behavior.
No shame. And no one's calling out Google. Google, they used to have a sign at their office that said, "Do no evil." It no longer says that anymore.
And then they got in bed with the government.
Joking aside, that's why they took it down, because they're a shitty, evil corporation.
Yep.
Apple sucks too, though, for that. Sorry.
Oh, man. Okay, so moving on. Change in subject. Small victory here, but it's very sketchy. EU indefinitely delays vote to ban proof of work mining. And the debate over proof of work mining in the European Parliament has been delayed with energy FUD surrounding Bitcoin mining. Remember, we talked about this when we said Europe was potentially going to ban Bitcoin. The Markets and Crypto Asset Directive, known as MICA, was set to vote on April 28th. The agenda was to start negotiations between the body and the Council of European Union and the European Commission, but ultimately it was delayed by the chairman of the Economics Committee, Stefan Berger. The delay is following, check this out, Phil, this is sketchy. The delay is following a leak of amendments that many saw as a proof of work ban, which gained a negative response from the public on Twitter. So what if it didn't leak? What if it didn't leak? So it got delayed and indefinitely because it leaked and people found out the truth and they started forming a ruckus?
This sounds ridiculous,
dude.
and
It is
insane,
so
and
ridiculous.
nefarious.
But
You know how sometimes you say like, oh, it's not some evil guy, twirling his mustache. It's not. It's an incompetent group of fools. Okay, and they don't have mustaches. Maybe they've got. I don't know.
That think they know what's best.
insane.
It's an incompetent group of bureaucrats. They think they know what's best for people, and think about their performance so far. Censorship of innocent Russians, censorship of Ukraine took off the banking system. People's debit card was working there.
Ooh.
We have censorship of, Apple and Google taking it off. It's like, dude, these are the bureaucrats that think they know what's best. This is the result. We are in the situation today because a group of elites feel they know what's better for everybody else. Bitcoin fixes that because it takes the money out of the hands of human beings back into the laws of mathematics. The monetary policy is completely separated from human corruption. And it figures out how to do that because it takes the human element out of the equation, right? Because I think human beings are inherently, if they have that much power, they're going to use that power to stay in power, which is going to lead to corruption and tyranny and oppression of the other group that's trying to essentially compete with you politically. Right? So it's just, man, it's stupid. But anyways, to end it with a good piece of news, Phil, check this out. We said we were going to follow this up, and we're following it up right now. This is the Intel Bonanza Mine 2, the second generation Bitcoin ASIC from Intel. I don't know if this is going into mass production yet, but check out the specs, right? This is the latest and greatest Bitmain Antminer S19J. It has a 140 terahashes per second. Watt is 3,010 watts. Check this out from Intel. Not bad. 135 terahashes and 3,510 watts, right? So again, not as good as the S19. However, Bitmain has been in business for a very, very long time. And the fact that Intel is getting that close for just their second generation miner is incredibly impressive. And again, all these things seem like noise, but the signal is here, and I've been hammering in this topic when we initially covered this, is when the China ban happened, it created an unintended consequence that essentially the biggest ASIC manufacturers are now Chinese. So if you have a hostile country against Bitcoin and the majority of Bitcoin miners come from the country, I think that could potentially be an attack vector. Adam Back and Mao identified that, which is why Blockstream acquired Spadoodles, this Israeli ASIC company, and which is why Jack Dorsey also is getting into the ASIC miner manufacturing business. And I think that's why, and I don't think Intel's doing it for these reasons. I think Intel's doing it for profit motive. But again, I think that the more competition, the better. And the more competition specifically coming from companies that are not Chinese. Not that I have anything against Chinese companies, but I think that, if you have a hostile government towards Bitcoin and you have the majority of Bitcoin mining manufacturing happening in China, that could potentially become a contentious problem, issue, especially if Bitcoin continues to rise up in market cap, and by continuing to rise up in market cap, taking power away from nation states. So I'm very happy that the manufacturing is at least decentralizing. That is some good news. Phil?
So I'm definitely not surprised at the Intel second generation performance, considering the fact that Intel's been around since at least 1968. I believe it was a different company before it was Intel. I think it was something called like NM Electronics. Anyways, the point is they've been making processors for a very long time. So this it doesn't surprise me that they have such good specs. I think we could expect in their third and fourth generation to just pretty much blow everything else out of the water. But look, the other piece to this that you added about the Bitcoin, about the mining decentralization, right? I think that people are missing the big signal of Intel coming to the table and investing and building in this. Look, I'm not trying to dump on Bitmain or WhatsMiner or all these other companies in any way, shape, or form. But you got to understand, giant conglomerates like this, the ship does not just turn, okay? The ship is giant. It's slow AF. It does not move quickly. It takes a lot of decision making to pivot and to do stuff. I'm not saying that they're pivoting away from their general business, but even to do moves like this, it takes almost like acts of Congress, so to speak. So the fact that they did this, the fact that their second generation has these specs, and the fact that they've been making processors for this long has me extremely bullish. You know, like for me, like this is beautiful. And I think it's fantastic. So I can't wait to see who else is going to come to the table.
Yeah, dude. You know, but so far so good, right? We have Jack Dorsey, we have Blockstream, and now we have Intel. Intel, huge fucking company, like you said, right? Very exciting. Manufacturing is decentralized, a good thing. Guys, we have an announcement. Phil and I are going to Unconfiscatable this weekend. So that means that we're not going to be home in our studios. We're going to be in Vegas. However, some good news. We are going to try to give you the same. We're going to try to give you content on all days, but it's not going to be in the usual format that you guys are used to. It's probably going to be on the go, whatever. But, you know, we'll get our team to edit it and make it look nice and all that stuff. So bear with us. We're also, you know, we're going to try to remind you guys as much as possible with announcements and videos here and there. But if you guys are seeing this for the first time, just letting you know that the normal show isn't going to be back until Monday. No, really Tuesday of next week, right? Monday or Tuesday. We'll keep you guys in the loop, but we are going to give you footage, and we're hopefully going to get some interviews from some awesome Bitcoiners at Unconfiscatable. Phil's bringing his camera. I think I'm bringing my weird selfie iPhone contraption thing. You know, it's going to be really cool. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. But anyways, Phil, there was an open source software release today. Why didn't tell everybody about it?
Software releases brought to you by CipherSafe. Check them out, cyphersafe.io. It's the best place to store your Bitcoin seed. Store your Bitcoin seed in the Cypher wheel or the all-new Cypher grid. Comes complete with punch tool and tamper/fill resistant wire. We've got Lightning Terminal version 0.6.3-alpha that was released. It's down below. Guys, don't forget to check out our audio-only podcast platforms. We are on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, and Anchor.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. All right, guys, before we go, I want to give a very special shout out to our awesome sponsor. They make dope hoodies. Represent rephard.com. Check it out. Phil and I try to wear different threads every show. They make hoodies, sweatpants, really cool stuff. I know there's some Bitcoin merch coming soon, and you can take advantage of the link down below for 15% off anything on the store, rephard.com. But guys, if you enjoyed the show, snappy, you know what to do. Smash that like button. And of course, if you want to continue hearing the Bitcoin news from the pleb perspective, definitely consider subscribing to Simply Bitcoin. And we'll see you next Tuesday, guys, when we come back from Vegas.
Make no mistake, censorship is not normal. We need Bitcoin now more than ever.